The following program is rated PG-13. Parental supervision is advised.
All right. Let me get my clothes on here and put my pants on. All right. Nobody's naked, right? All right.
Poseidon, the ruler of the seas and all that dwell within them. His rule over the oceans is unquestioned. There are those who serve him with tridents and with infinite knowledge of all things submarine. They are known by many names: coners, weaponeers, the merry men of Sherwood Forest. But by Poseidon himself, they are called the Subvets.
Thank you and good morning. It's an honor, it's an excitement to be here to join the shipbuilders, Navy leaders, and particularly Secretary Del Toro and my friends from the U.S. House and Senate at this historic milestone for a submarine that since 2013 has been extolled as the #1 priority of the Navy and the Department of Defense. As Kevin said, keel laying is an ancient nautical term whose historic and dictionary definition is, quote, the formal recognition of the start of a ship's construction. Of course, as we've seen and as the Columbia workforce knows, this submarine's construction hardly begins today. In fact, its origins go back 15 years ago when Admiral Cecil Haney raised the alarm at the Pentagon that the Ohio-class submarine fleet was aging out at the same time that our nation's submarine design workforce had dropped to an historic low.
Well, happy District of Columbia Day-ish. I don't know how to. So the new submarine is the USS District of Columbia, which is not USS Columbia because, as it turns out, there already is a USS Columbia, and they didn't want to cause any confusion because the current USS Columbia, by the time the District of Columbia gets built and launched and commissioned, will be long a memory. But today it might cause confusion. So we had to rename the USS Columbia, the new SSBN, USS District of Columbia. And this has made Eric very happy.
Yes. No. What?
Are you
Was
confused?
it always supposed to be? Yeah, because they always just said Columbia from the very beginning. You know, when they slated this thing back in 2010.
Right.
Never said anything about District of Columbia. So it looks like this was just thrown. I mean, did they always
Nope.
have plans to name it that?
This was very much a last minute thing. The SecNav, Secretary of Navy, put out a memo. I think it was the day before the keel laying, saying that officially it was being named the USS District of Columbia so as to avoid confusion with the USS Columbia, which, again, as I said, is currently still in commission, but won't be by the time this thing is built. How long is it going to take to build this thing? 5-7 years? I don't know.
Maybe.
It's going to take a while.
But I'm still confused, so it didn't avoid confusion. How are they going to fit it on the hat, Dave? I mean, USS District of Columbia.
Have to make the font smaller, right? Like they did for the city of Corpus Christi. Remember that
Or
one?
maybe they can have a bigger hat. Like we can go back to the old traditional Navy hats. They can get that big old thing.
White hat and have it.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
They used to have that. They used to have those. I have one. You remember the old black flat hats?
Yeah.
Those ones say U.S. Navy on them, but they had a ribbon that would have your name on, right?
Name it whatever you want. Plenty of room to write. They could even do it in fancy cursive fonts. And, yeah.
Well, you can't do that because nobody can read it. I mean, it worked for I guess the city of Corpus Christi hats fit, right? Because that was one they had to change back in the 80s. Remember that? They had a submarine, nuclear-powered submarine, potentially carrying atomic weapons to fight a weapon of war, and it was named the Blood of Christ, Corpus Christi. Can't have that. So they had to change the name. They literally had to change the name to City of Corpus Christi because it was named after the city.
So they really,
not the actual blood of Christ. So
this was actually a big discussion topic, freaking out.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, you can look it up. It's on the internet. You can look it up. That was crazy.
Okay.
But,
Everything's on the internet.
Right. But so that's, I mean, I imagine that fits on a hat, right? I mean, your hat says U.S. Grant. That's not the actual name. The actual name is Ulysses S. Grant. So would that fit?
Right. And I've seen it, but it's like, I think they did make the font smaller to make that work.
Right.
Kind of looks
Goofy.
Yeah. So,
Unlike Michigan, which looks great.
Well, I did some sleuthing, and I'm thinking, so in 2010, the original Columbia project was going to be a $4.2 billion project in 2010 US dollars. But they've been having all kinds of problems with the recent release of the GAO report. Apparently, they don't have enough tradesmen with the proper skills to build. There's a lot of rework, quality assurance issues. So the budget's already increased. And, you know, we're always seeing budget increases anyways. You always see like a little one paragraph news story. I post them, and they come out, well, it just increased another, you know, 400 million, another 125 million. And it all adds up. But Dave, the Columbia project, the first boat will be reaching a whopping cost of $15.03 billion. So I would say it's appropriately named. And that's all I got to say about that.
So basically what you're saying is the cost of the submarine is about the equal for a tank of gas from my Subaru.
Exactly.
Jeez. I don't know, man. You know, I keep looking at this thing, and you posted an article the other day about how it's going to be the most stealthy submarine of all time and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, technology keeps advancing, and that's great. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, we did 41 for Freedom. Then we did 18 Ohios. And then we took the Ohios and reduced their armament by 4 each, right? Because we went from 24 missiles to 20 missiles. And I'm old enough to remember that the Tridents, the Ohio class, were extended during the design phase. So there's a series of frames in the after end of the missile compartment. So again, this was 40 years ago. So if it's the wrong frame number, I'm sorry. But as I recall, it was frame 82. And instead of going from frame 82 to frame 83, it was 82B, 82C, 82D, all the way out to F, as they kept extending the thing out to 24 missiles. Originally, I think it was supposed to be 16, and then it was 20, and then it was 24. And I don't know. 24 seemed like too many, and they ended up decommissioning. Yeah,
especially because they were designing things back then basically still with the slide rule type technology. I mean, I don't even think the early computing was really coming in yet. So I mean, then I probably would have got into all kinds of problems, you know, like 24 missiles, can it handle the stress, you know, the length of the boat, the flux, you know, when you launch a weapon. And I mean, when we launched our 4, we did a 4-bird OT. And when we launched the 4 missiles, as I recall, now again, this was 1985, so it's a little hazy, sorry. Plus, I've got brain fog from having COVID for 2 weeks. As I recall, there was 1 missile from each bank of 4 or 5, I don't remember. So there was 1 forward, 1 aft, 1 mid, 1, you know, two from each side, 1 forward, 1 aft. I'm trying to remember exactly. I was told, now again, this is what I was told. I don't own a micrometer, nor did I ever climb into these missile tubes to verify this. But I was told later on that part of the problem with the 24 tubes was that the last 4 tubes tended to warp slightly, and that it was, quote, impossible, unquote, to put a D5 missile into those last 4 tubes because of the warping. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I know that's what I was told, and it made sense to me. So that could be the reason why the tubes, you know, were decommissioned in the first place when they brought the D5 missile online. So now there are only 20 missile tubes instead of 24. I don't even know how many they're putting in the Columbia. They're putting 16. Are they back to 16 on that?
which seems to make sense. 16 seems to be the good number.
And there's treaties in place, which it doesn't sound like treaties is really going to be a thing much longer with all the craziness going on. But
right. Nobody's paying any attention to those. So, and of course, it's going to be the Trident II missile, which seemed. So Eric and I were having an offline discussion today. It seems to bother you that that it's still going to be the Trident II. You seem to think that it should be something new.
Well, I mean, Russia's been building new weapons. I mean, but this gets into a long, detailed discussion because it kind of goes how our rocket program has just gone down the tubes. So, and this is just talking to the old guys when I was stationed at No2 Cape Canaveral. Back going into the Apollo program, we were really innovating. So we are doing exactly what Elon Musk is doing right now with SpaceX. And since he's self-funded, he's able to blow his rockets up and nobody has a problem with it. But that's the fastest way to innovate and get things into production and make sure you get the right product. Well, we can't do that when you got the government involved and all these politicians got their hands into it. It's difficult to make a rocket. And that's why when we went into the space shuttle program, it just turned into a big cluster of overfunding. And like what we're seeing now, the Columbia going to $15 billion, it was the same thing. The shuttle kept getting over budget the whole time. And it was really just a space plane going into space. And granted, we needed to build the space station, but we were always supposed to go to Mars. The Apollo project was built to eventually go to Mars. That was the original thing, but everything just stopped. And it just got into because overfunding and everybody's got to have their hands in the kitty. So that's the problem. So I think the reason that, this is my feeling, the reason we can't build a new rocket is because you got all these politicians that got to have a little bit of a piece of the action. And it just becomes way too expensive. And the Columbia class submarine's already a new product with all those. And you could see with the $15 billion, you throw in a new rocket and it's just astronomically out the door. So we'll just be carrying the same old 30-year rocket that we always been. So we're building this brand new fancy submarine carrying 16 museum pieces. But other than that, I mean, I'm cool with it. I mean, they work.
They work. I mean, okay, let's go back to this for just a sec. So the Columbia class submarine is taking advantage of new technologies, particularly those from the Virginia class and the Seawolf class, the electric drive, the silencing, the propulsors, and all that kind of technology has changed there. What's changed in rocket technology that would be the next thing for a ballistic missile? Now, I guess you could put a hypersonic missile on a ballistic missile submarine, but that would really kind of defeat the purpose of it. Hypersonic missiles are impressive, but they lack payload because of their range. So they're not very good as quote unquote strategic weapons. They are tactical weapons, which is not the purpose of a ballistic missile submarine. So what's the next step in rocketry that, I mean, maybe a more efficient fuel, but they could put that more efficient fuel into a Trident II package, right?
But is it a tactical weapon now, or is it a strategic weapon?
Some of them are.
I mean, the warhead,
right? Some of them are because it's a certain number of them. According to the Seattle Times, it's 8, but who knows? Of these missiles have been converted to the W-76-2 warhead, which is the atomic bomb. It's not a hydrogen bomb. It's an atomic bomb, and it's a small tactical nuclear warhead, which makes no sense to me. Why do you need? Right. There are many people who have argued that the W-76-2, the 5 kiloton warhead, whatever it is, makes it more likely that they would be used because now it's tactical instead of strategic. You're not using it as you're using it as a battlefield nuke, which is crazy. Why would you throw one of those, quote, 4,500 nautical miles when you could, drop one from an airplane a lot quicker and with a lot more control? It doesn't make any sense to me. It never made any sense to me, but I'm not in charge of our country's nuclear defense forces. the people who
and we don't even know the capabilities of the newer technology. I mean, all their this is shocking, but the Germans build the French program, but I mean, they just put out their new SSBN recently. So, right. I mean, it was a little while. I think it was last year. I think they just put out a new SSN just this last week, but the Germans build their stuff. So Germans always build good stuff, but Germany's not supposed to be building rockets. So it's kind of confusing because wasn't there something about World War II and they're not supposed to, but anyways, that's a whole other thing.
Japanese Navy isn't supposed to have aircraft carriers either, but have you seen the aircraft carrier?
Japanese build great products too. I mean, the fact is we don't know the capabilities and what the new warfare spectrum. And that's why we do this podcast. Cause I mean, we kind of come into it like we really don't know. And if we did know, well, we really couldn't be having a podcast because you can't talk about that kind of stuff.
So it's pure speculation on our part. But I go back to what I'm saying, what's the next leap forward? Okay, so Polaris, right? The reason Polaris worked was because it was solid fuel. Yes, you can put a liquid fuel rocket on a submarine, and there have been countries that have done this, but, and I say this with love, they were insane, and they paid the price for that. Then you had the multiple warheads. That was, the A3. And then you went into Poseidon, which became bigger and more accurate. Then you went into Trident, bigger, more accurate. Trident 2, bigger, super accurate. What's the next big leap forward? I mean, that won't fit on a Trident 2 missile. That's my question. If there's something on the horizon in rocketry that says, you got to have this because this is what really makes, 3 stages gets you pretty much around the world. There isn't any place you can't hit. You're hyper accurate. So really the only changes that I can see would be physical weight, the size of the warhead, the efficiency of the warhead size, and maybe more efficient fuel and maybe more accurate guidance, but all of that should fit. I don't know that we don't, all I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that we, I resent your representation of the Trident 2 as a museum piece because I think it's pretty
far as getting the whatever package you're going to put on top into space, the Trident 2 is a highly reliable rocket. I've launched 30 of them. I was clearly happy with the product. The products, and it is aging out, and it makes you wonder: how old are the missiles that we are carrying? I mean, but that gets into when a product ages, like an old car. When a car ages, if you don't maintain it properly, and maintaining properly means you literally replacing the whole car over the life of it because you're placing one part here, one part there, and eventually the whole car is replaced, even though it still looks like the same car.
I'm with you on that. But I guess what I'm saying is what comes after Trident? Is there another missile on the horizon that says, hey, because I was there, and I don't know if you were there then or not, but I was there when we went fleet-wide from Poseidon to Trident, and it was paradigm shifting.
Right.
What's the next paradigm, I guess? What could you do with a ballistic missile that Trident 2 can't do? That's, I guess, other than further range, but I don't know that you need more range. I just don't.
But as far as the mission speculation, so the B-52, another museum piece. There you go. And even with the B-1 stealth bomber, you still have to have a degree of air superiority to even be able to get them to their target. And we know the land-based rockets are basically used, especially with the hypersonic missiles that could take those things out before they even get to. So the problem is, can they get our rocket in the boost phase? So the only way they're going to be able to do that is have somewhat of a general knowledge where it is, or have some kind of weapon that has the amount of speed to get to knock out the rocket while it's in the boost phase. Which that gets into the whole thing with electromagnetic guns and the particle beam weapons. That all these things are getting better and better over the railgun. All this stuff's getting better over time. So this is pure speculation. I have no knowledge of what they're doing. But that's the thing. I mean, but yeah, right now it is our prominent nuclear weapon delivery vehicle. I mean, it's really the only thing we got as far as getting weapons on target. But will there be a time when there's a defensive or what would you call it, offensive weapons to take those things out? You know, in the booster stage.
That was the whole point of Star Wars in the 80s, the strategic defense initiative. And some advances were made. I mean, we have destroyers. We have Arleigh Burke-class destroyers stationed in Yokosuka right now that are designated as ABM destroyers. Their missiles, their SM-3 missiles, are designed to take down incoming ballistic missiles. How effective they are, I don't know. I mean, they seem to work for tests, but nobody's ever actually tried one. But, you know, advances have been made. And I guess what I'm looking at is I don't know. I suppose that there is something you could do, make it smaller, cost less. But as far as accuracy and deliverability, I don't know that you're ever going to top the Trident II, which offends me because I'm a Poseidon Trident 1 guy, but Trident II is a pretty impressive missile.
No, it's a damn good rocket. I mean, I was kind of knocking around a bit, but I'm just saying it's just the age and why are they developing newer products with the other ones? So it just makes you wonder, Dave, you know, are we missing something? Are we missing some piece of the puzzle here? But, you know, as far as the weapons delivery vehicles, so let's get back into the boat. I think the reason there's concentration on a new platform that delivers these rockets, I think that's where, because you got to make sure it's stealthy so it doesn't get picked up before you even launch the thing. And so that's where the capabilities are probably going to get into, which is interesting because they keep saying it's more stealthier. Well, we already know from the Trident days that how do you look for a Trident? The only way is you look for a hole in the water. So that kind of gets in my telephony thing too, where, you know, so when we first went to voice over IP, because I was a big part of that development in the early 2000s, what they came up with, because people were used to hearing a little bit of background noise on the phone. So when the first voice over IP lines were starting getting used, people didn't hear anything. So when they answered the phone, they didn't hear nothing. So they thought them as they would just hang up right away. So we had to induce a little bit of noise on the line. So when you talk on a voice over IP, there's always an induced amount of what they call as white noise.
Right.
So, yeah, we might be getting stealthier. So there's probably some kind, and there's speculation again, they're probably putting a certain amount of noise out there. Shocking. That would be scary if that's what they're, but maybe that's what they are, because you got to mimic the background of the ocean to make it look like nobody's there.
I've always assumed that that's what we're doing.
For looking for.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I've always assumed that's what we do.
Yeah, so maybe that's what we do already. And, you know, nobody's told me anything, so don't get no, because I don't know. I'm just using because, you know, I remember that as a problem when we did the voiceover. So
wasn't it Tom Clancy who revealed the Prairie Masker system that the surface ships use? And so the idea here was, I think this was in Red Storm Rising. I don't remember. But he was talking about this system that nobody at that point knew about, but Prairie Masker, which was a system of bubbles. And so there was like bubbles that it would like blow bubbles around a ship's hull. And then they had this thing that streamed out and it did the same thing. And it would sound to sonar like rain. So if you were listening to the thing, it'd sound like rain hitting the surface. And the way they finally figured out how to work around that was, hey, what's the weather topside? Because if it's sunny and brilliant out and you hear rain, that's not going to work. Well, and again, it's Tom Clancy, so who knows? Who knows what he knew? He obviously knew more than he was supposed to know, but how much of it got into his books, I don't know. But it always seemed to me that there should be dead silence is a problem. And you're right about the noise on the VoIP, because the same is true in radio. That's one of the problems with FM radio is that it's so clean that for talk radio, it doesn't really work well because there's no hiss. There's no
AM radio was always, I never thought about that. Right. That's a dang good point. So.
And so works great for music, but even if you go to listen to music in an auditorium, there's an echo, there's air movement, there's shuffling of feet and papers and stuff like that you don't get. And so, yeah, I can see where that's why sensory deprivation pods work, because they take all that away from you. And it's annoying. I mean, I have tinnitus. You probably have it too. Submariners, it's the joke about submariners. We got to have the fans on, right?
Yeah.
Planes can crash outside our house. Doesn't bother us. People screaming doesn't bother. As soon as the fans are off, we're wide awake. Why? Because we need that background noise. We need that level of
which is very, very hard for spouses to understand.
Fortunately,
can you shut the thing off? Sometimes I have to point it up, Jay. I have to point my fan straight up, which is okay. I just have to hear the noise, and it's just one of those little $5-10 fans. I just gotta have the noise.
I have on my iPad. I have a sleep noise sound white noise generator, and it's hooked to my speaker that sits next to my place on the bed, my side of the bed, and that runs all night with white noise. Yeah, it's
I was just thinking when you brought it, said that would be a way to solve that problem. My wife would definitely like that.
It's funny. I mean, it's just, but it's true.
Well, here's another thing. Well, what about the recent reports about the LCS program where they're finding cracks in the holes? These brand new boats, and
you're really
they got
surprised
stress fractures already.
Are you surprised by that? I'm not surprised by it. I mean, they have been having problems with it.
No, I'm not surprised because it kind of goes.
It's the same problem.
It's
the same problem.
Do we have the work? Well, do we have the workforce to build these things? Is what I'm saying. Was that the problem with building that boat? I mean, it was a newer class boat. I mean, that could be it too. They're building them with all these. They're trying to take all the angles out of all of our ships and planes so that it makes them more stealthier. And I'm sure that creates a lot of shipbuilding headaches. But I don't know. Is that going to be a problem with Columbia? We're going to have stress fractures too. I mean, after the first missile launch. I mean, could there be the potential that we lose one after a launch? I mean, that was always that was a real problem because they didn't know when they launched the first Polaris rocket. So even though the Admiral was it Rayborn, I mean, he rode that boat, I think, for the first launch. And
I don't know. Part of the problem, like you said, it's politics. I mean, I read a report last year that part of the problem with the F-35 fighter is that there are like 3 congressional districts in the entire country that don't make at least one part for the F-35. It's so spread out.
That's what made it so expensive.
Right. And the same is probably true of Columbia. It's probably true of the Virginias. I mean, the politics that enters it, it's no longer about what's best for the country. It's about what's best for my congressional district or my reelection chances. And so, that does create a danger, but at the same time, could it also create a sense of unity? But at the same time, now you're back to, okay, what happens if this plant can't produce something, the widget A or whatever it is, and that one can't produce.
But NASA shocked me. They got around that whole district problem. Everybody's having their hands in the pot. So they've been trying to develop the new space pack, that they'll wear on the moon in the new astronaut suit. So, of course, with all these different development, the designs are so expensive. And so they get overweight because they got to put, like you said, they got to have widgets from all over the country, and they get overweight and expensive. So what they actually shocked me, they're going to rent their spacesuits. So that way they bypass all that political wrangling. Can we rent our rockets and submarines, Dave?
Don't we do that already? I seem to recall that Lockheed owned the missiles and we just rented them, as I recall.
Well,
it's been a long time.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what was the policy.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, if we're renting them, then why can't we build a new rocket?
Well, then that goes back to my question. What's the next thing in the rocket? What's better than Trident II? What's the next leap?
I don't know. Trident 2 is a dang good weapon. I mean, I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's just jokes. Don't everybody get upset about the Trident 2. Man, I don't want to hear about it. You know, it's Trident 2. I'm highly familiar with the Trident 2.
It is a serious question. What is the next leap in rocketry? Obviously, in submarining, it's quieting, it's equipment, it's drivetrains, it's that sort of thing. I get it. But what is it in rockets? Because I don't know. I mean, rockets go up and the payload comes down. I know we've come a long way.
We can use the Elon Musk product. No. So you know how there was actually a procedure to go back to port after you launched your nuclear weapons to reload. Well, we do know that that's impossible. You're not going to be able to go and reload them. But what if you had the capability to put new warheads on top of the rocket, and we used Elon Musk's rockets? They go out, deliver the package, and they come back and land on your submarine. And you put them back in a tube and put warheads back.
And a drone comes out and drops off the warheads.
Dave, you're laughing. Dave, you're laughing at me.
No, I'm not.
In 10 years, we're going to have robots, and robots can go out underwater and do all the work. And it's the future, man.
Right.
It's the future. Like R2-D2 in the back of the X-Wing type thing. Yeah.
Speaking of R2-D2 and becoming robotic, you're about to become at least partially robotic. I already am. I have 2 joints in my body that are robotic, and you're about to join me in the world of robotics.
Well, I'm going to be adding another robotic product. So I already have titanium in the shoulder, so I will be. I don't know what do they use in the. They look like they're like little metal cup thingamajiggers that they put on both ends of the bone. But getting a knee replacement on Tuesday.
They are.
I'm terrified. I can't take my anti-inflammatories. I'm in pain.
That was the worst part of getting ready for mine, was not being able to take anti-inflammatories for a week. And it's like, so last week we had to go to the courthouse in Tacoma. We had to get some paperwork for my wife. And I'm not going to go into why, but it wasn't anything serious. It was just paperwork. So we had to go down to the courthouse. So we're walking through the security thing, and, you take your wallet out, your keys, your cell phone, everything. And I walk through the thing, and of course it goes beep because I have a titanium knee. Mm-hmm. And I said to the gal, I have a knee replacement. And she looks at me and says, well, go back through and take your belt off. Now, one of the side effects of COVID is I didn't eat for like 2 weeks. So when I take my belt off, my pants are like, I'm like, did you not hear what I said? I have a metal knee. She's like, just walk through again. So I did. And of course it beeped again. 4 times I go through this thing. 4 times I tell her I have a knee replacement. And she finally says, I heard you the first time. Well, then why didn't you wand my knee the first time instead of making me go through all this crap? And, my pants are falling down. You're holding up the line for no particular reason. Anyway, so you got that to look forward to.
I already have that problem, Dave, with the shoulder. Been there, done it. Airports. Yeah, I get it. I basically have to get naked to get on a plane. So that's why I don't fly.
I don't fly either. Yeah. I don't fly either. Like, look, I'm just here to get one piece of paper. That's all I need. And I'm not even going into a courtroom. And I almost just let my wife go do it by herself. But then I had to go to the bathroom and get redressed because it was like, holy crap, everything's falling off. Yeah, that was an adventure, man. I don't want to scare you, so I'm not going to tell you about mine. But they were supposed to do a nerve block on my leg, and they didn't.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because nerve blocks are essential for these type surgeries. So
and now, I'm going to have to. When someone says to me, and I go to the emergency room or something, and they say, rate your pain, I can never say 10, because when I woke up from that was the 10. So now I got to say, hey, there's an arrow sticking out of my abdomen. Yeah, that's a 3.
Yeah.
Because I know what a 10 is. There's actually a picture of me. I'm not kidding. My wife took a picture of me as I was waking up from the knee replacement, and in this god awful, horrifying, I would have confessed to anything pain. She actually took a picture of me in that pain. And, Once you're done with yours, I'll send it to you. I'm not going to show you before because I don't want to scare you anymore. But
no,
yeah,
I mean, Dave, I already know he's like, even with the nerve block on the shoulder replacement, I was still in agony. I don't do pain well. That's the biggest reason I'm scared to death of it. I'm not scared to death of them doing the surgery stuff. It's the pain afterwards because I know exactly what you're talking about.
But you know what? They give you morphine, man, and then you don't care.
Yeah,
the pain goes away and you don't care. I was up 4 hours after my knee replacement. I was standing up walking around. No, I wasn't going very fast, but I was up walking around. But man, I tell you, it changes your life. You know, before the knee surgery, before the replacement, I could only walk for about 10 minutes. I mean, I literally
that's where I'm at right now.
Right, and afterwards, I don't know that my quality of life is any better. I still have a lot of knee pain. I don't have range of motion. For God's sakes, Eric, I can't trim my toenails. And that's a huge deal, people. And I know you don't think about it, but that's a huge deal. And my balance is not there. But I tell you what, I don't have the pain that I had prior to, which was pretty bad. So,
they made it sound like I am going to have range of motion. They said I'm going to lose some range of motion. Now you're telling me I'm going to lose a lot.
What I'm going to tell you, point blank, is if your knee therapist comes in and says, "Hey, you don't need to do the little machine that moves your knee because you're doing so good," ignore him and do the machine that moves your knee anyway. Right.
Keep moving. Yeah, physical therapy is a big thing. Big thing.
I had 2 setbacks.
I've been doing that.
Yeah. And I actually ended up.
Well, that's the advantage because I've been getting over. I'm getting over this ankle fracture, so I have been doing PT 3 times a week already. So I've been strengthening up a lot of these muscles already, which I think is going to be helpful.
My insurance company delayed my PT by over a month, so it was a mess. And I'm still not. I don't have good range of motion, and that's part of the problem with it. But then again, I can walk. So I guess I'm blessed in that aspect. Of course, the last 2 weeks I haven't been walking because I had COVID, which was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you seem pretty good because there's some guys I've got friends, they don't come out of it very well. Their ability to breathe is not there. Like they're being runners and now they can't run or they can't run as far as they did.
As you've noted a couple of times, I'm still coughing. So it's hard to clear my lungs. And I'll tell you the thing that drives me nuts is there's 2 things. One is the brain fog. I mean, I will literally forget what I'm talking about in the middle of a sentence. But the second one is the exhaustion. I mean, I feel fine right now. 9:42 a.m., June 10th, 2022. I feel fine. But by 10 o'clock, I may be so tired that I can't keep my eyes open. It's weird. I mean, it comes and goes, and it's frustrating.
It's a nasty thing. That's the other thing, because now it's all over Denver. So it kind of hit you guys first. So I knew it was coming this way. Right. Now it's in Denver. So I'm going into a hospital with people that have COVID.
It's been an adventure with that. I'm glad. So I don't know what we're going to do for the next, because you're not going to feel like doing anything for a couple of weeks, for sure, for a couple of weeks, and who knows after that. But this isn't exactly strenuous, so you just but you will be on painkillers.
It's just getting over. I haven't been on pain pills in a while, which is a blessing, because when I was on the pain pill train for 5 years, so. When your body's used to pain pills and you get a surgery, that's really bad. That's why you have a lot of pain, because your body's already used to pain medication. So at least I've been off for a couple of years now. So I'm hoping that's going to be another thing to help me out. So hopefully morphine will solve the problem, like you said. So, hopefully I'll be alive. I'll be here and we can do another show and keep going and putting out fine products for you folks, and with new knees, and 10 years from now, Dave and I might be actually just robots,
right?
Now
we did get a couple of emails.
Walt Disney had in play.
We got a couple of emails. I haven't seen
what you got?
Well, now you did a show with Andrew Lynn about Fearless Freddy. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, I was there, but I was not to talk. So but I haven't seen anything of it.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we had done our take on the Connecticut report. Let's see. Who is this? This is Robert Bade. Sent us dear. Well, he didn't say dear. He says Dave and Eric. Sorry. Just finished listening to the podcast you did on the Connecticut. Wanted to add some input from the perspective of a family member of a U.S. submariner and someone who works in a high-stress environment. At times like those can be found on submarine. As I mentioned before, I've worked 15 years as a paramedic in the Pacific Northwest. That said, there seems to be a lot of questions about why this occurred. And when I think about that in a grounding situation, I think about what compares and contrasts qualities of this are, that doesn't make any sense, to the USS San Francisco. Both situations were deemed preventable. And I'm going to agree with that. Both situations were clearly preventable.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly,
maybe even more so than San Francisco's. Connecticut's just, the more I read that report, the more I'm just convinced that these people were determined to hit the bottom. Like, you know, the more I read that, I get frustrated with it because I read it like, is there anything else you could, if you weren't trying to hit the bottom, what would you have done differently? You know, it's like safety rules. Who needs those? Anyway, in both situations, the crew were able to save the ship and return to port. The distinct difference is that one did die in San Francisco. Let's see. When you look at the information brought up in that report, you see the boat was very much in an up-tempo situation. Let's see. Did the fact that the Connecticut is one of only 3 boats in its squadron contribute to the fact that they had minimal oversight? Yes, I would say. Yes. I would think the Seawolf class would have more oversight because there are only 3 of them. I think it was it Aaron was talking about his experience with the people in the development group squadrons and the SSGN squadrons. And he made a comment, I think, on his podcast about there tends to be a lot of overconfidence in those squadrons, his experience, not mine. So there's a tendency to say,
kind of that cowboy thing.
Yeah. You're here because you're the best, so we don't have to watch you that closely.
Bunch of swashbucklers, you know.
Yeah. Second question. Did the operational value of these boats being slated primarily for missions critical to national security contribute to the commands allowing certain behaviors to slide that would normally be unacceptable in the rest of the fleet? Well, that's a tough question because the Navy today is much different. We were having this very conversation yesterday at a funeral for a guy that had been, you know, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And the world's changed. I mean, we were talking about a CO that had been relieved for doing something that back in the 70s, 80s probably wouldn't have even been noticed.
Right.
It was one of those things. So I don't know that I don't know that the missions are what contributed to the lack of oversight. I still think that it's there's something in that area of operations, the special development groups, maybe the SSGNs, I don't know, that, you know.
Wasn't there something about crew morale in one of those articles?
Yeah, because the Connecticut, remember last year, the Connecticut was the bedbug boat. That was the boat that had.
Yeah, they were pretty beaten down, and apparently the captain was a hard guy to work for. And so.
Well, we've heard that in the surface fleet too. So I don't know. I don't know that it's the mission that caused the lack of oversight. Something has changed in the Navy,
right? And
where an officer like an XO, a department head, division officer would advocate for his or her men and women now, that doesn't seem to happen as much anymore to me. I mean, I watched a lieutenant, non-qualified submarine lieutenant, physician, doctor, we had a ship's doctor at the time, argue with a full bird captain about what needed to be happened because he believed he was right. And for the record, he was right. And for the record, the captain acknowledged that he was right and that he was correct to stand up for what he believed. Does that still happen?
Can that happen without repercussions and basic? Well, you got the cancel culture right now. Would that cancel said lieutenant's career for standing up?
Go back to
Maybe people are afraid to say anything now.
Go back to the captain of the Truman last year during the COVID crisis. Now, I'm on record as saying that his actions were incorrect, and I still stand by that. He handled it incorrectly. But I do believe that there was a way that he could have done what he wanted to do, which was stand up for his crew without sending an email to the press. That was incorrect. He should have been relieved for that. But the admiral's quarters were right down the passageway from his. He could have done but it doesn't seem now. But the crew reacted differently. The crew reacts like, "Hey, this guy stood up for us. Yay!" Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. So I don't know, man. He wants to know, what does the crew go through during a situation like this? The boat just grounded. They recover control, sail for Guam. Then upon arrival, the entire command structure of the ship is gone. Still a task to be done. Still got to go back to Bremerton. But now you've got a brand new command structure. How does the crew handle that situation? I don't have any experience with my command structure being relieved. However, we did have our incident in 1986, which resulted in the boat being disabled, and we had to go back. I can tell you that for me personally, after the engineering casualty, that's what they call it, engineering casualty. I can tell you that during the casualty on the surface that night, I was fine. I was professional. I was highly trained, but afterwards, when you have time to think about it, when you have time to think about how close you came, it's different. I can tell you that it was cleaning up the aftermath of that was much, much different.
Yeah, it's those guys training and drill sets that saved both those boats, the San Francisco and the Connecticut. So
saved ours.
So it shouldn't have happened, but hey, because the training and drilling, that's why we were able to recover the boat and EB's ability to build great boats. We said that as well. So
I don't know.
Removing the whole. Well, I was just saying, removing the whole command culture. They're bringing a whole new command culture. Structure. That's got to be different. And then they had to bring it across in bad weather with a beat up boat. That had to have been scary too. So you're already beaten down. That, like you said, you've already had time to think, hey, I just barely made it out of death. And now you're taking an injured boat on the surface. Yeah, you're not done yet. Not only got to do once, you got to do it twice. San Diego and then up to, Bremerton. So wow.
Like I said, I don't have any experience in the Navy doing that. I do have a little bit of experience in the civilian world with that, being sent into a place where a management team has been relieved, fired, and you got to go in and deal with that. And it's always a question. Do I go in and do you go in as the hard nose and I'm going to fix these problems, or do you go in with the attitude, hey, these people have been through hell, and I have to pull them back together. And I've been in 3 situations like that where, I wasn't sure what to do. And so for me, Rob, the best thing I can tell you is what I would have done had it been me is I would have gone in and I would have had an all hands meeting, somewhere. Right. Put your cell phones away. No recording devices, nothing. Take all your rank insignia off and let's talk. Let's find out what's really going on here. Now, I don't know how effective that would be. In my day in the Navy, I don't know that would have been truly effective, but I also know that if I had a legitimate problem, it would be legitimately listened to and legitimately dealt with. If I had a BS problem, I don't like this, that would have been dealt with differently. But I know that legitimate problems were legitimately listened to and legitimately dealt with. Maybe not the way I wanted them to be, but at least I had the satisfaction. And I think I've told this story before. I had an XO that went to bat for me over something relatively minor. And when we lost, he pulled me aside and said, hey, we lost, but we tried. I expect you to carry on professionally. And I did. And I appreciated the fact that he did that. So it was, I don't know. I don't know what the new command structure did with the Connecticut. Obviously, they succeeded in getting her back. And
right.
So
something to say about that. Yeah.
So there you go. That's the answer to your question, Robert. I don't really know. That's the best I can tell you. I thought we had another one, but I don't know where it is. So did I send it to you? No, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for the emails. You want to send us an email. My email is dolphindave@slipperyfish.com.
And I'm Eric at thesubvet.com.
And we'll probably be gone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're going to be out. And Dave may or may not be, I mean, maybe because we talked, he could probably bring on a guest host to do a show perhaps while I'm gone. And we'll talk about that later. And that may or may not happen. So we'll see. Because hopefully I'm still here after next week.
That's really well. So listen, I appreciate the post you made and all the thoughts and prayers while I was suffering with COVID. And equally, as Eric undergoes surgery on Tuesday, I think you said.
Mm-hmm. Please use the prayers. Yeah. Bring them on. All right. So when we post a YouTube video on there, not only bring on the prayers, but hit the bell, like, and all that jazz. And make sure you can go to my Facebook group at the subvet/group. It's Facebook/group/ the subvet. I always get this wrong. And then Twitter / the subvet. And then, of course, you can also go to the subvet.com. And I am building a merch site. I don't have much up, but I am open to ideas about what type of product it is. So if you have a cup, with your boat you want or something, email me the boats or something. See if I can make something up for you, because I got some people who are helping me out with some graphics, enhanced graphics and stuff. Maybe we can make a good product for you. And that always helps us out with supporting the Subvet, and that helps us get better shows out there and better products out there for you. So that's all I got, Dave.
So check that out. Now, you want to see us do something really crappily? Because we mess this up every week. I'm Dave.
And I'm Eric. And we are
the Subvets.
Subvets.